Hello and welcome to the Soul Align Network private podcast. I am your host, Chris Madrigal, and today we are diving into a conversation that blends sovereignty, feminine leadership, and the real life journey of building a business that aligns with your soul and every season of your life. And for that, I am just honored to welcome Julia Jerg all the way from Bali. She is a soul-led coach, a strategist, a mom of two, and the powerhouse behind Sovereign Mamas movement. So welcome, Julia. It is a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much, Chris. And yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
I love that we have the opportunity to connect again. So just a little backstory. I met Julia and we connected probably in a Facebook group. She
Mhm.
had me as a guest on her podcast. So we'll make sure that if you haven't tuned into that one, we put the link here again. And we had a connection, and that led to me inviting her to be here so she can share more with us about the Sovereign Mamas movement and everything that she has going on in her world. But Julia, before we kind of dive into all that, I would love for you to share with the audience really what led to you creating the Sovereign Mama movement and really what led you to the path that you're in today.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Chris, for the opportunity. And yes, it's really so nice to have this opportunity to being in conversations with women all around the world. And this is what's just so fascinating to me. And I've been an entrepreneur since 2011 when I left Germany, where I'm originally from. I left a corporate career. I was a PR consultant, and I was like in the hustle culture. And long story short, it led me to a path of self-discovery after I made the decision to quit my job, leave my country, travel for a bit, and the traveling turned into a whole new chapter of my life because I ended up traveling nonstop until 10 years later. And so I had my kids on the road. I had like multiple circles around the world and lived in different countries and worked from there and building and connecting and like speaking on stages and all that stuff. And yet it was always something that felt missing. And the more I got into conversations with mompreneurs, the more I saw it that, we come from a generation of masculine strategies of this culture
Yes.
of you gotta achieve. This is the way to do it. And I know that especially moms, when they tap into their deep knowing and when they become mothers, there is something that comes through you and this instinct that kicks in that ripples into your business and the way you show up when you're an entrepreneur. And it happened to me, and I know a lot of conversations I had just fine-tuned me to this message that had to come through. And it was end of last year in 2024 where I was sitting in a really chaotic time with my children. We lived in Thailand back then, and I had this strange message coming through that we have to move to Bali, and it didn't make sense. And it was like, why? We just like established such a beautiful routine. We have a community, and long story short, I just trusted my intuition and my my business besties, I should say, the people, and then also clients in my coaching programs, they would always reflect something that say we can do it alone. Yeah, and we have proven that our business works, but we feel so out of alignment and we feel so exhausted by the fact that we're catering to a business model that used to work when we had no children, like pre-children.
Mhm.
And now it's just like either sacrificing your motherhood or your business success. And I said, this is not true. It's there's got to be a different way. And there is a different way because I had been living my truth since my kids were born. Like I've always had them with me. Like I spoke on conferences and they were just like tagging along and mingling in the networking events. And I had workshops with my toddler on my lap and stuff. And and also adjusting the flow of your business to when, being smart about it, setting up automations and things so that when your children are sick or you want to spend time or you want to go on a holiday, you can. And this is when Sovereign Mamas was born. I was getting more and more clear on how I would like to spread this message in the world that there is a paradigm shift happening. I see more and more women coming into their power and into speaking their truth and saying, no, feminine energetics is not woo-woo, and solar alignment is not woo-woo, and it's not magical, and it's not out there. No, it's part of the successful entrepreneurs who are claiming that as part of their becoming. And I'm on a mission to giving more women a stage through our podcast, through our book series, to just speak their truth and share their stories. Because when and you know that, right? When you're in connection with those who are speaking the same language and you learn about them, it's so, I mean, it's always goosebumps. And when you have goosebumps, it's just right. And yeah, this is why we are connecting because you're also
Yeah.
doing the same great service to your community. And I just love that.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that. It's beautiful to see. Well, I always love to see and connect with mothers who have been able to really take their children on their journey with them. I know
Mm,
several moms who traveled the world as entrepreneurs because they established a business that allowed them to do that. And not only did you build that flexibility for yourself, the life that you give your children by immersing them in other cultures and the experiences of that is something that only they can value as much as they do. But it's so beautiful. And I love to see that and connect with women that are doing that. My children are already teenagers. And so unfortunately, I was in that corporate grind most of their childhood. And I do look back and there are moments where it's like I was in the hustle and, taking care of them and being a full-time mom and a full-time person in corporate. And it just reaches a point where you just can't do it anymore.
mm,
And it's a decision that people have to make. Interesting enough, I was speaking today earlier with someone who already has her coaching business going, has clients, but is still holding a corporate job. And she's like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. So to be able to have that connection with women that are already ahead of you in the same space, supporting others is just beautiful. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing your experience and just really the evolution of Sovereign Mamas movement. And so
mm,
I'd love to just tap a little bit more into that. I know that you talk a lot about feminine energy funnels. And
mm.
that right there, I think that concept just kind of intrigued me a little bit. And I know it probably intrigues others. So, for those that are not familiar with that term or, that terminology, if you will, why don't you explain to us a little bit more of what does it actually mean to create that feminine energy funnel?
Sure. Yes, I know. It is a intentionally produced term that doesn't make sense, right? It's like funnel is something so cold and so masculine strategic, and then feminine, obviously opposite. But it was created when I've had multiple clients go through the same experience with me, where I shared strategies with them that would work for some, and including myself, but not for them. And I sat with it thinking, wondering, why is that possible? Like, how is it possible that she can even, I checked, like she was doing and implementing all the things that I told her. It's not working for her, but it's working for her. And then it dawned on me, it's not the strategy, right? It's the person executing it. And that makes so much sense. It's with everything in life. We can have the same, like, whatever it is, you get something, it's same amount of money in your hands, right? One person uses it and grows it and multiplies it, and the other person spends it and is back to zero. And so it really is something I strongly believe in with especially like entrepreneurs, coaches, healers, mentors in the online space. If you have something that isn't feeling right, it won't work. So it's your pricing, it's your customer journey, it's the marketing, it's the offer, whatever it is, whatever element it is in your business. If you're not backing it with this true conviction that this is the right thing for you, it's not going to work. So you can't just take someone else's methods, strategies. And that's how I work with my clients, that I just look at like I feel like sometimes more like a therapist, to be honest, like because I sit and listen. Like, and I ask questions, and when they say, oh, I ask them, what's your goal? They tell me the goal, and then I don't even really go further into this because it doesn't really matter what the goal is. It matters how do you feel today? What's going on in your life? What's the relationship to your partner? How are your children? How do you feel about your diet, your exercising, your spiritual hygiene? All these things matter more to me than you telling me the business goal, even
The
though I'm a
actual
business.
goal, right?
Only then, when I have this clear picture, then I can say, okay, now we can reverse engineer from your goal, but now it's completely like customized to you. And feminine funnels is basically this, because a funnel is a journey how the outside world enters into your world, how you lead them, guide them, nurture them, connect with them all along the way until someone is so close enough to say, of course, I want to continue working with you or start working with you. And that's how I set my clients up, because now we're not like talking about this cold funnel. It is how you guide your people, the right people, and your soul aligned clients to your offers. And this can look, or it does look different to everyone, right? So we see, does video work for you, or is podcasting your thing, is long form posts, is Facebook your platform, is TikTok your platform? All these questions, you have an instant yes or no to it. And if I suggest to you just a strategy for build a Facebook group, but you inside of you think, oh, cringe, no, too much work, I don't want a community, I just want something hands off or something, there's no point in me pushing you towards that alley, right? So
Yeah,
this is the concept basically.
beautiful. I also love that you really emphasize the ability to really be able to have that motherhood journey and the entrepreneur journey, and the two not having to compete with one another.
Hmm.
Because we often find that in women, where it's like you're not being fully present in one or the other. So if I'm focusing on my children at home, like, oh my gosh, there's something in the background saying you're not fully present in your business, and vice versa. What can you share with our moms that feel that way, knowing that you've found that balance and you founded the Sovereign Mamas movement for that reason?
Hmm. I think to put this in perspective, what I found for myself and a lot of women in my community found for themselves is this deeper urge or a longing to really um, birth their soul mission into the world. Yeah. So if you are in a corporate job, or if you're following a career path that requires you to go somewhere into an office, into some other, like outside your house, this might not be the best advice. But if you're someone who's truly genuinely thinks, I have a gift, I have something inside of me stirring that needs to get out, and I know I can help other people. I have a transformational story. I have a method. I found out something works for me. Or whenever I talk to friends, family members, they ask me for advice on this specific topic, I'm the go-to person, right? So if this is something that resonates with you, then I just have this one message. Then that's your mission, that's your goal, that's your purpose. And I just followed mine. I know I'm a beacon for feminine energy. I'm a leader for this mamas movement because I truly believe we cannot talk about it enough and empower other women to really go for it when there is this nudge, that this urgent side of you, this desire to have something like out there, and it's monetizing your soul gifts, right? So it needs to come from there though, and not the other way around. So if someone is coming to me and say, I want to make money online, then I'm not the right person because it's not leading with this motive. And once you are though in your like in service of your mission and your purpose, once you're doing that, then magically everything else aligns. Then you can be a present mom and serving your people because then somehow the universe or whoever you believe in is orchestrating a construct in, and your reality somehow bends. It's always like, it sounds maybe out of this world, but it is so true. When I have something where I'm just like forcing or going towards something because of the the monetary aspect of it, it usually there's resistance and there's usually some sort of force in it. But when I say, I have to do this because I feel that this is the right thing, I will help. This is affecting so many. This is helping, and this is it. And then how beautiful then you attract the right people, doors open, opportunities you hadn't even imagined. And so when we are in a place of motherhood, mostly like if you're in an early stage of motherhood where the overwhelm and everything is still your reality, like also know that this is one of your seasons. This is one of the chapters where it is okay to just lean back in business and say, I might just slow down the rhythm and focus on motherhood. And so what I've always been doing is I'm looking back and seeing, in those moments where everything is okay with the children, you can go in, you can fully lean forward and be more in your business. And then you slow down when the kids need you more, when they're little, when something is happening there. Um, and it doesn't break your business though. If you have a business model set up that doesn't depend on your consistent presence and then you're consistent, like only if you're there, then you make sales, right? So it really is a strategic setup, but with this concept of you're you're here to serve, you're here to help, and then it works. Does
Yeah,
that make sense?
it does. And as you were speaking, something came to me, like the question that so many women have of how do I really know what my true purpose and mission are? And I think so many women find themselves just stuck where I know I want something else. This isn't the life that I envisioned and desired. I have so many dreams, but at the same time, I don't even know what my soul
Mm.
purpose is. What
Yeah.
advice do you have for women who are in that moment right now?
Yeah. I mean, I think we're both in the world of Melanie and Layer, right? Yes.
Yes.
And she's currently running this masterclass, which is so timely because I feel she says it really perfectly. It doesn't actually matter if you know it right now, because that's not the point. Like it's everything when you look back in your life in that moment where you're about to break through or where you're about to step into a new chapter, you didn't know that this is the next chapter because
Right.
the present moment just doesn't give you the future. And so it's the same with your mission or your purpose. Like right now, you don't have to know it. You just have to trust that everything that comes to you right now is part of the puzzle pieces that are going to assemble the bigger picture. This requires you to fully trust and fully lean back and say, it might feel or it might feel good, but doesn't really logically make sense. Just like this move to Bali didn't make sense, or I launched my podcast or relaunched, I should say, in a moment of moving, packing up our house, moving. And I got this like really clear message, launch the podcast now. I had it planned for the end of this year, and I launched it in May, where I was still one foot in Thailand and already like it was insane. I was recording and meeting, and you were one of no, you were I was already in Bali, I
You
think.
were already in Bali.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. But there were some women that I met on the kitchen table of my friend's house because we had in between a phase where we were homeless because our lease ran out. And so I was in the middle of the night recording some of those sessions. And I was like, this doesn't make sense. This does not make sense. But I knew I had to do it. And when you have these thoughts come through, the more you learn to trust that and train this muscle, I always call it a muscle because it is somehow like a muscle, and you get better at it. I've been doing this for so many years. Like leaving Germany was a big, no logical thing to do. Like leaving my successful career back then, everyone shook their heads and saying, "What are you doing? You're 29 and you're traveling the world with a backpack. You sold everything. Why do you not keep your apartment?" All these things from outside made sense to them, but it didn't make sense to me. So I've been doing this for over a decade. And so for me, making big steps are now easier. But if you're still like thinking and wondering and sitting there saying, yeah, but you know, writing a book right now doesn't make sense because I'm not there yet. What story should I share? I'm always saying to the women who come in and say, everyone has a story that will touch someone and inspire someone, and you're always one step ahead of someone. So
Yeah.
keeping your story to yourself, even if you feel like you're not an author, not ready, not yet skilled enough, is actually holding back and doing the world a disservice. We need to speak, we need to share so that others can say, me too. Like the world needs leaders, right?
Mhm.
And it starts with us.
Yes. And when you say that, it reminds me of one of my favorite quotes from Steve Jobs that says, "You can never connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking back and know that somehow they're going to connect." And when I do that, it's looking back and saying, now I see why I was in that placed in that moment with that person in all the ways, right? I remember hiring a coach because there was something about her that really would draw me in. And
Mhm.
once I got into her world, I would always tell her, I'm like your worst student. I don't know what it is, but I can't follow through with the things. And that was very odd for me because I go in and I'm pretty disciplined and I do it. And it didn't make sense to me. Later on in our journey together, that's when I decided I was going to become a published author. And we were in a session with different women, and I was sharing that, like, okay, I'm declaring that. I opened my computer, I started writing the intro. That's it, I'm doing it. And in that moment, there was a woman that was in the Zoom, you could say. We happened to connect like you do with a lot of women that you're in mentorship with and stuff. You connect on the socials. Then I see her post about a book.
Mhm.
She was just sharing it from a friend. That led to my connection to publishing my first book, to
Mhm.
becoming a, international bestseller. Four books have followed since then. Two more are coming, and it's only been 2 years. And I look back, and this is the moment where I connect the dots looking back and say, I never entered her world for business reasons. I entered her world because that was the path that was going to lead me to become an author. But there was no way for me to know that.
Mhm.
And the fact that things were not making sense for me, that's where like I don't understand. Like I hired you, but and that's what I say, I'm your worst student. If you can even call it a student, right? Mentee, whatever you want to call it. But it wasn't till later that I
Mhm.
looked back and I said, that was the reason you were placed in
Yeah.
my life.
I
He
love
wasn't
this so
for any other
much.
reason.
I love this so much. And this is exactly what other like everyone has these stories. Everyone, if you think and now listen and say, "Oh wow," then really sit down and not you, the listeners, like sit down in silence. This is one of the key things. I've when I unlocked meditation. Because it had always been something where I say, oh yeah, but I'm the one who's, ticking off destinations and I want to do and be. No, not be, do and see all the things. But then when I learned how to sit still and really receive messages and sit with yourself, then you'll have those moments where you say, oh yeah, that was that moment that led me to here. And yeah, I just love these stories.
Yes, because now I can do that, right? It's like I'm right
Mhm.
here now. I start to connect the dots looking back, and
Mhm.
I could see how every dot just connects. And it's kind of like that. I see where that person entered. And that
Mhm.
moment happened. That led me to this moment. That led me to this moment. That led me to the version that I am today. And there is decisions that I'm making today that sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, why? But then, like you, it's kind of like, okay, I've stopped asking why. And it's like,
Mhm.
let's go. Because the longer I stall, the longer I'm interfering with
Mhm.
what God, source, the universe has planned for me. So let's just respond to that intuition, to that message, to that knowing, and let it unfold. And that's where the magic happens, right?
Mhm.
And I love it because I know when I'm having conversations with women that are in that same energetic frequency, it's like you're speaking the same language. It's like, yes, I understand you. And even though
Mhm.
there may be people who tune in and say, like, "Oh, really, yeah, you guys don't make sense to me." I just urge people to just trust. And like Julia said, get quiet, get silent, because it's in those silent moments that things definitely unlock.
Yes. And surround yourself with women who are already like normalize things that you might feel out of your comfort zone. I feel that is also a big thing that helped me to stay accountable to my dreams and goals because each time when you have something come up that feels too big, you can easily shrink back and say,
Yeah.
nah, that's just like, and then you brush it off and you brush it under the carpet, and it might lay there for a few years, but then it is there and it's inside of you. And if you have someone who's already living that truth dream or whatever, it's so much easier for your brain to comprehend that it's actually possible.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I'm loving this conversation. Thank you, Julia, so much just for sharing your heart and your story and your journey because we probably didn't even scratch the beginning of it because when you're telling me like, oh, I was in Germany and I'm now in Thailand and now I'm in Bali, it leaves me with like, oh my gosh, I want to know more about you, right? But obviously, one episode doesn't leave us enough space for that. But I just want to say, for those that are tuning in, if you felt an activation with this conversation, I invite you to connect with Julia, explore more of the Sovereign Mamas movement. And Julia, why don't you let us know how anyone who is enjoying this conversation, how can they connect with you? How can they just, go into your world a little further?
Yeah, sure. So we're obviously on all the platforms, and easiest is probably our website, sovereignmamas.com. We do have the podcast that's also with the same name on Spotify and all the podcast platforms. And yeah, our book series is every quarter. There's a new Sovereign Mamas book coming out called Secrets of Sovereign Mamas. So if you want to just be one of our readers or would love to apply to submit your story, then one of the chapters is a multi-author anthology. You can do that through the website or send me a message. Like if you listen to this episode here and you find me on Facebook or Instagram, just say hi, then I know. And it's always so refreshing to know who hears you where and reaches them
Yeah,
out. Don't be shy, we're
beautiful.
all here.
Yeah, beautiful. And Julia, I invite you to share a little bit more about your book inside the Soul Line Network for anyone who is, interested in ever writing or sharing a chapter of their story in one of your books. I invite you to just share that in the group, and that's yet another way where people can connect with you inside the Soul Line Network. And, I'd be very appreciative of you just kind of sharing a little bit more of that. Another path for women to just share their stories with the world.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity, and I'm happy to do that, of course.
Of course. So, for everyone else, thank you for showing up. Thank you for tuning in. And we will see you next time on another episode of the Soul and I Network private podcast. Until next time, bye.
Bye.